Welcome to a Life Under Construction podcast. I'm your host, Rhoda Daniel. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or watching on YouTube, welcome. I'm very happy to have you here with me. Thank you once again for tuning in this week. If you're new to this podcast, I release episodes every single week, every Thursday at 7 p.m. IST, and we talk about topics that will help you build the life that you want. I hope you've had a good week. My life has been a little busy as usual, but it's unusual for the end of November. I usually feel as if the year is tapering down as we head into December, but this year it has been different. This year has been really hectic, and I feel as if I'm catching up, that I do not have any time to catch my breath. And I'm also recording this podcast right before I have to catch a flight again for a very busy week. It is what it is. I am still very thankful for the life that I get to live. And now I'm filming this podcast and talking about something that I believe has also helped me during this very busy time, and that is self-control. Self-control is not something that people want to hear about. Self-control is not something that people talk about because it is the boring part of success and of life. But I feel like every successful person that I have met, every person who has built something of themselves has this quality, and that is of self-control. They know what is good for them, they know what is bad for them, and then they make a choice to do more of the good things and to not do the bad things. I think we all are aware of things that are detrimental to us, but where we struggle is that we don't control ourselves. We don't stop ourselves. Either it's too hard sometimes, but I think for the most part, it's just that we don't want to control ourselves and we just want to do whatever we want. When I was in college, I remember I didn't like discipline, I didn't like self-control. I used to tell myself that I'm a creative person. I go with the flow. I am not going to follow something so rigidly because that's not my personality. That's not who I am. And even something as simple as a bedtime, I didn't follow it because I felt like it was restricting me from living the life that I wanted to live. I felt that I was more energetic at night, and so I will stay up late and I will get up late and I will sleep whenever I want and I will do whatever I want to do because I wanted to do it my way. Well, I realized pretty soon that routine and discipline and self-control were not actually bad things. They were actually things that were good for me. And though they seemed restrictive at the time, they actually gave me the freedom to live a more creative life. Without routine, without self-discipline, without self-control, I found myself doing things that distracted me from my life, that drained me, that didn't put me in the best mental space. And when I realized that, I decided to be more disciplined with my life. I decided to exercise self-control, even in the smallest of things like a bedtime. The thing that I realized was I have the right to do everything. I could probably do everything that I wanted, but not everything was beneficial for me. When I accepted that, when I internalized that, when I saw how self-control was helping me and how doing whatever I wanted just because I felt like it was harming me, I had to make a change in my life. I had to make that switch in myself and stop telling myself that I could do everything because everything was not beneficial for me. I think instinctively we all know that. We all know that just because we can doesn't mean we should. But I don't know what it is. We are just very stubborn as humans. We just want to do what we want to do. And we don't really think about the consequences of that because in the moment, it feels great. I've heard the story about Lata Mangeshkar. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it sounds true. Basically, Lata Mangeshkar was a very famous singer in India. And she had this habit because she had to protect her voice. She never had anything that was cold or even in some cases room temperature. She always ensured that she had hot water, hot drinks. She didn't have like ice cream or things that could upset her throat. Why did she do that? She did that because she was a singer and she wanted to ensure that her voice remained at its best because that was her purpose in life, to sing. And that meant saying no to things that people would usually say yes to. She did that because her purpose, her voice was more important than enjoying pleasures like ice cream. You and me, we struggle with saying no to ice cream because ice cream is great. But when we realize that something is more important, we do need to learn to say no to certain things that distract us from the more important thing. There are certain things that distract us from the life that we were meant to live, from the best life that we were meant to live. And those are the things that we need to start saying no to. They might be big things like addictions that are derailing our life, or they might be small things like emotions like jealousies or anger that is stopping us from living our best life. I think we just need to take a step back and introspect and see what is it that is something that I'm doing that everybody seems to be doing, but is it beneficial for me? Eating ice cream is not wrong, but for someone like Lata Mangeshkar, it was a no-no. For someone like me with a lactose intolerance, it is a no-no. Even though I love ice cream, I know the consequences of eating ice cream. And so even though I crave it, even though I feel like on some days I just need ice cream and I wish I could have it, but I know that it's going to upset my stomach. And so I just say no because I know that it is going to stop me from living my best life. And there are so many other decisions that we make every single day. Those are decisions that impact our lives because our lives were made and meant to be a certain way. But when we do these things that are detrimental for us, it stops us from living that life. It honestly stops us from living that life. And I've learned that from the process of elimination. When I slowly started taking decisions where I would exercise self-control, whether it was in a bedtime or with the food that I was eating or with the friends that I was hanging out with or the way I spend my weekends or the way I spent my nights or the things I watched or the way I thought. With all of these things, when I exercised self-control, when I exercised restraint, I noticed the quality of my life changing. And once I did that, there was no going back because once you know what your best life looks like, you'll be like, oh, this is how it's supposed to feel like. This is how a good life is supposed to feel like. When we start removing the unnecessary things in our lives, we will start seeing the important things in our life. So how do you get there? I know that's the question you have because all of us struggle with exercising self-control. We know it's good, but how do we exercise it? I think the first step is to be aware of yourself, to know yourself, to understand yourself, understand your personality. For me, I had to realize that I have a very addictive personality. I have a very all or nothing mentality. So if I'm all in, I'm all in, or I need to be all out. Moderation is not a word that I understand very well. So knowing that made me realize that I cannot exercise self-control in a very lukewarm manner. I had to be all or nothing with it. I know people like my mother who are very moderate in nature and they can probably have a packet of chips in front of them and have like 2 chips and then close the pack and keep it aside. I'm not like that. If I have a packet of chips in front of me, I have to eat the whole thing. But if I don't have a packet of chips in front of me, I can like go months without eating chips. So for me, I need to say no to things. I need to cut it out completely because if I have it in my life, I can't do moderation. And that's me. It might not be you, but know yourself and know your weaknesses and be honest with yourself. I know we struggle with being honest with ourselves. We tell ourselves that we can do it, that we'll be able to exercise self-control, that we are strong and we are independent, we can do this. Well, as humans, we are weak. We need to accept our weaknesses. So know yourself, understand yourself, reflect on who you are and understand who you are, that will help you take decisions to ensure that you are able to exercise restraint wherever you need to. The second thing, once you know who you are, is to then stay away from the things that tempt you. And by stay away, I mean stay away. We are weak. As I said earlier, we are so weak, and though we can tell ourselves that we will be strong, that we can be in the midst of a situation and still say no to certain things, that does not work. That does not work. Maybe on some days we are strong, but there will be days when we will get weak. So just stay away from things that you know that you struggle with. Stay away from those websites, stay away from those people, stay away from those places. Just don't put yourself in situations where you know that there are chances of you getting weak and therefore giving in to things that are not going to be good for you. Again, it might feel like you are being boring. It might feel like you're not living your life, but trust me, it is better to be boring and restrained than to lose control and do all the things that everybody else seems to be doing and then regret it later. I'm pretty sure Lata Mangeshkar did not regret the fact that she didn't have ice cream for so many years. She didn't, because there was something more important that she was doing. And unless you let go of certain things that are normal by society's standards, you will not be able to give yourself fully to the thing that you were meant to do. And the third thing to do is to constantly remind yourself of the consequences of losing self-control. I think we've all been in situations where we have lost control of ourselves and we find ourselves in places or in situations that we shouldn't have been in. When we have those memories, when we have those experiences to look back on, we need to remind ourselves that this is what happens if you do this. This is how you're going to feel if you do this. You do not want to feel that way again. So no, just say no. I think when we can train our mind to remember those moments, not in a shameful way, not in a way to make us feel guilty, but to remind ourselves that we could be better, that there is a better way to do this. When we do that constantly, we are able to stand at the crossroads of a situation, feel really strongly that we want to do one thing, remember why we shouldn't be doing that thing, and change course. I strongly believe that self-control is one of the most underrated qualities that we could have. People don't talk about it, people don't praise it enough, but it is one of the qualities that if you have that, you are set for the rest of your life. If you are able to say no to the things that are not good for you, you are set for the rest of your life, because you are not allowing things into your life that are not good for you. You are not allowing yourself into situations that are not good for you, just because you have the ability and the strength to say no. And this is cultivated over time. You start with trusting your gut. When your gut says, get out of this, get out of this. And the more you do that, the more stronger that gut instinct becomes, and the more stronger that voice becomes in your heart that tells you when you need to get out. And once you start listening to that voice, when you start listening to that conscience that picks you and tells you what to do and what not to do, we put ourselves in a better position to live the best lives that we could possibly live, because that conscience, that voice is leading us down the path that we were meant to go on. And there are all these opposing voices and this noise that is telling us to go down other paths, that is distracting us from the path that we need to go on. And we need to be willing enough to listen to that voice that is telling us, go down that path. Don't look left, don't look right, just go down that path. And if we are strong enough to listen to that voice, We will find ourselves in places that we could have never imagined ourselves to be in. We will find ourselves doing things that give us so much joy and so much satisfaction, that give us meaning to our lives. When I was in college, there was a TV show that I watched called One Tree Hill. One of the dialogues of that show really stuck with me because it gave me a reality check about my life. It gave me an understanding of every single choice that I make. And I thought I would end this podcast by sharing that dialogue or that quote. It says, "Do you understand the rest of your life is being shaped right now? The rest of your life is a long time. And whether you know it or not, it's being shaped right now. You can choose to blame your circumstances or fate or bad luck or bad choices, or you can fight back. Things aren't always going to be fair in the real world. That's just the way it is. But for the most part, you get what you give. The rest of your life is being shaped right now with the dreams you chase, the choices you make, and the person you decide to be. The rest of your life is a long time, and the rest of your life starts right now." It really hit me because I realized that every single choice that I make, big or small, affects my life, and I have just one life to live. When I realized that, I became so much more conscious of every small choice that I made. Every small thing. How did I talk to people? How did I spend my time? What did I do on the weekend? Where did I go? What did I do with the time when I was alone in my room? Every single thing matters. And so when I started being more conscious of that, and it was a journey, I didn't like change in one day. But when I started becoming more conscious of that and exercising restraint, it's like a muscle, I think. You have to kind of use it in order for it to be stronger. And not that I am like perfect at it now, but I'm much more stronger at it now. So I hope that that's a choice that you make as well. It might seem like the boring choice, but let's be boring together. Let's do the boring things. I think every successful person in the world will tell you that they had to do the boring things. They had to be the ones not having a social life. They had to be the ones getting up early in the morning and doing the things that they needed to do. They had to be the ones having habits that people probably made fun of. They had to be the ones reading the books. They had to be the ones putting in the hours. They had to be the ones doing the boring thing because that is what built their life. So be boring, be routine, because boring is what is going to get you to live the life that you were meant to live. So thank you for listening, and I hope that these podcast episodes have been useful for you. If you want to reach out and chat, DM me on Instagram or write to me at writetous@alifeunderconstruction.com. And I will see you next week with another topic that will help you live the life that you were meant to live.